lines, or it just has a square right here. And it gives you a couple ways to draw a square. You can do it corner to corner, so it's this corner rectangle. I start at this point and you go to that point. My square is built. A center rectangle, you can play with all these on your own. I'll just do two of them real quick. I'll start at this point, and then I let go. I drag my mouse, and then I click again. And that's the 2-point corner to corner square. Okay? Control Z works here just like it does in Microsoft Word. Control Z and I'll go back. I'll drop down again. I use this one a lot. I like the center rectangle also. So I'll click the center, and it'll just fan out perfectly. And it'll center itself about my origin right there, 0 point. Okay? So what we're going to do is, let's go back to this view here. So sometimes when people see a part like this, we're going to draw this two ways. A lot of people think, well, I'm a machinist, I'm going to get this piece of, this block of material. So they're thinking in their head how they're going to make it. So I'm going to get this box, this billet, right? And I'm going to kind of machine out all this material in here. So I'm going to take away all this material. And so then I'm going to have this right here. I'm going to machine out that part over there. And then, later I'm going to drill a hole in there, so I'm going to drill this hole in there. And then, I need to cut out a groove here, so I'm going to come by and I'm going to cut that out. And so forth, right? And so you start that way. So you get another guy. So I'm a welder, so I'm gonna get a plate. And get another plate. I'm gonna weld them together. And then I'm gonna knock a hole in here and knock that out through the top. So then I'm gonna model it differently. And so the idea is that you want there's best practices for modeling. I'm trying to get at it. There's going to be best practices, just like we did with dimensioning, just like we did with the orthographic views. There's someone who can, and this is a simple part, so we'll start seeing it later, but you can make this part out of like, I don't know if anyone plays like chess or something like that. It's like, well, you can do it in 10 moves or 2. Like if you can knock it out in 2, well, you're a badass. You ended the game in 2 shots. But if you draw this in six pieces, it took you a lot of time, and it gets very confusing. What ends up happening is SolidWorks will crash. It'll crash if you're not modeling correctly. So if you have a model with all these parts in it, and you're like, oh, it's not opening, and it'll just crash. Or you try to make a hole bigger, and it falls apart in front of your face, and you've been working on something for like hours. So one of the takeaways from the class is Control S, Control S, Control S. Save all the time. Bring in your drive. Save on your drive. You can't guarantee that your work is going to be saved on these computers. So you bring a little jump drive. Save all the time because files will crash. SolidWorks will hang up. So you want to impose like really good drawing techniques because it's someday you'll move on and someone else will inherit your work. And they'll be working on it someday. And you're like, oh, who did this? This is lousy. And you have to start over. I've been on both ends. I was on the lousy drawings and I inherited someone else's lousy drawings. So it goes both ways. But the idea is we'll draw this a couple different ways and then we'll see how it can be different. So the first way is we'll be the machinist. We'll start with a block. So I'm going to start with a block. Oops. Click up there. So let's get out of this. There's X's and editing. So I'm going to get out. And we say discard changes, and I'm back to where I started when I click new. So I can close this out. Don't save. If I hit new, part. Okay. This is my starting screen. But I can't sketch yet. I have to pick a plane. It doesn't know what I want to do. So I hit sketch. I pick a plane. Now I'm in sketch view. And the reason I know that is because these showed up over here. So now I'll do the corner square. So now we start with a block. And what I need to dimension this thing. So I go to Smart Dimension. It's right up here, and I'll click that. I'll click like an edge. And see it highlights because it kind of thinks you want that edge. And I left click. I get a number. So I hit 10. Go over here, and I'll make that 20. So 10 by 10, okay. So I can either get out of my sketch over here, or I can go straight to what I want to do, which is extrude it. So it's one or the other. There's lots of different ways, or I can hit check and say I'm done dimensioning. But I'm still in the sketch mode, I'm just done dimensioning. So this flyout manager comes out. So I click here, see that flyout manager, this whole thing popped out. It wasn't there before. Before it was this, your feature manager, it talks about all your features. the second I do something, that thing flies out and it starts giving me ideas of what I want to do. So another interesting thing here is that it knows when you're double dimensioning something. So it does it for you. I have the 20 here, I have the 10 here. If I go and dimension this, right away it gives me a problem. It says, do you want to make this dimension the driving dimension? You're going to see this law because you're going to end up doing this law on accident, so pay attention. It's going to ask you, make this dimension driven. Driven meaning the 20 is driving it. So if I change this to 22, this will turn to 22. Do you want it driven by something else? Or do you want to make this dimension driving? That's the second option. Who's clicking? Someone clicking on something? Okay. If I leave it, and you'll be hung up here and you won't know what to do, and it'll be kind of annoying. But if you make this dimension driven, it kind of makes it a reference dimension. So you can see how it made it kind of gray. So when they're dark, that means that those are the real dimensions. So now that that's driven by this one over here. So if I go over here and change this to 22, that one changes to 22. So it's a reference dimension. It's just adding a little extra information, but you don't really need it. So what I'm going to do here is just leave that. Okay. The other thing is if I made it drive, if I pick the other thing and say I'm going to make it the driving dimension, I'm going to start getting a whole bunch of errors. But okay. So now I got this. Basically they're in conflict now. This one's in conflict with this one. So now you're seeing all these colors. It says in the bottom right corner, if it's yellow, it says items are in conflict. And then if they turn red, then you got a real problem, and that'll happen. And that means the item is unresolvable. It cannot figure itself out. It's unsolvable. So right away, when I start seeing stuff like this and all these little pictures, there's a problem. It says overdefined. You see it in red right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that. And then so there's two options how to get out of the sketch. You can click here. And now you can see you have a sketch. That's your first kind of feature in your feature. It's not really a feature yet. It's just a sketch in your feature manager. So to make that a real feature, we have to go to Features and extrude it. I'll do that again. I'm already clicked on the sketch. It's kind of touchy, right? If I'm not clicked on anything and I go to extrude, it's going to give me this yellow box. It says, what do you want to extrude? We don't know what you want. But I'm assuming there's something you want here, either from a sketch or from some other plane. So now it's asking me the question. If I click this, maybe you'll figure it out. Yeah, I figured it out. Sometimes it won't. Now here's the funny thing. If I just click over here on the sketch and then go hit extrude, it knows exactly what I want because I was already selecting the sketch. So it knows I want to extrude the sketch. You have this little arrow, you can pull it in and out, or I can just say what I want. So in your flyout, whatever they call it, the flyout field, I should know that because I just said it. 10. And so now I can make it drafted. There's a lot of cool features here. I can take the draft off. I can extrude it in 2 dimensions. One way it went forward and the other way it went back. Okay, but we're gonna stay right here for now. So we're gonna extrude it 10 inches. Say okay. So now I have a box. So now I want to sketch some more. I want to start cutting things out. Again, if I go to sketch and I say sketch, it's going to ask me a question. Well, where do you want to sketch? On the planes? You can pick up the planes or a surface. So I'm going to say I want to sketch on this surface here. So I'll just click there, and now it's ready to sketch. So I'm going to use this again, the square. I'm going to just click somewhere right here, and then I'm going to see how it kind of wants to snap on its own. It kind of has an idea of, oh, you want to attach it to this line here. It'll change. You'll see that little yellow box next to my mouse. That's saying it's called a relation. And we're going to talk about that. It's going to be on the test too. Relations are you're going to balance some kind of function. So the function is saying this is coincident to a line. So say yeah, that's good. Now what you see here, and absolutely this will be a question on the test, is what are the black and blue lines? Why is it that this is black, but then these ones are blue? And what it means is that we're not fully locked down. That's a problem. What I mean by lock down is if I use my left mouse click button and I click that line, I can pull it and drag it around. If I click this line, I can pull it and drag it around. But because this point is coincident to this line, it's locked. I can't pull it. Because this is locked to this line, I can't pull it. So what it's saying is that right here on the bottom right, it's saying I'm underdefined. I'm not fully constrained yet. There's a couple extra things I need to do to lock this in space in X and Y on this plane. So I got to dimension it, right? Because we're not fully dimensioned. Just like some of the homework we did, it's like we're missing dimensions. So this is not really defined yet. So I'm going to do smart dimension. I'm going to click this line. I'm going to call it 5. And now it's black. What that means is I can't go up and down anymore because I have to find that height. That's driving it right now. So I'm going to go to smart dimension again. And I'm going to dimension from this edge to this edge. I'm going to call that, I don't know, 15. Okay, now it's all black. What that means is that it's locked in and no one can come in there and make mistakes or open it up and move it around on accident and close it and not know that they moved something around. That's a big problem. People are moving things around and don't know that they moved it around. And now my part's don't fit for some reason. So I'm going to go ahead and now there's two ways to do this. I can exit the sketch, click on the sketch, and go up to features and say extrude. Or I'm going to right click and say edit sketch. I'm going to go back to the sketch. And I finished my sketch. Instead of going out, I'm just going to go straight to what I want to do. I'm going to go features and extrude, and it just does it. I'll do this again. I can just so I'll say, okay, I'll accept my sketch. I can right click the sketch, edit the sketch, and now I'm back in it again. This time what I'm going to do, features, I'm going to say extrude cut. A little bit different. Extrude cut means I'm going to go through this in this direction. I'm not going to do blind because blind means a certain distance. I'm going to click here. You mind not clicking, please? So through all. And so now it cut the block. Cut the block. So we're starting to look like this guy, slowly but surely, okay? I'm not going to draw it to scale, but now we need to draw a groove over the top, right in here. So I'm going to go back to my sketch. I'm going to say sketch, and I'm going to pick the top. I pick another square, and I'm going to take that corner to that corner. And so now I have this, but it's not fully defined. I haven't defined the width and its location. So this is, it's kind of nice, like you know you haven't done it right because it's blue. So it kind of checks it for you. So we'll make that 3. Okay, that's cool. And maybe I will dimension it from this edge to that edge. So it's 4. Feature, extrude cut. And now I will do it blind. Or I can say, you know what? Let's do something else. Instead of blind, we'll say to a surface. Go all the way down to this surface. Cut that right there. So I don't even. So the nice thing is that when you use these little tools like what I just did, if all of a sudden I go back to this sketch right here, oops, I'm sorry. The one that we did over here, and I went down 5, right? That's that bottom surface. If I change this to 7, guess what? That slot goes down to 7 because I said the feature was to next surface. These are kind of those little tools that you won't pick up anywhere else. I'll go to the next surface. If I would have done blind, I would have been at 5, and then somebody else comes in and changes my part. Oops. Click something. There. And it would have looked like this when somebody else came and changed the thickness. Because originally we were at 5. So these are little things that if they're not connected, you don't use these kind of special tools in here. The thing is the maintenance of the drawings is something else. Designing is one end, but the maintenance of these models is a big deal. So now we sketch, and now we pick a circle, and it doesn't know what I want, so I'm going to pick the space. I'm going to draw this circle. Feature, extrude cut, and let's say through all. So now this looks just like my drawing, but my circle is not defined yet. It's still blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this smart dimension, I'm going to click the outside. The outside, and look, it does the standard way of drawing. So it gives me the diameter, we'll call it 5. But I still need to determine where that circle has to be. So what ends up happening, go, well, if this is in the center, I want it to be this same distance. So I go over here and I measure this from this edge to that center, and I say it's 5, let's say, for instance. And I measure from this end to that end, and I call it 5, and look, the hole goes black. So now I know that I'm fully constrained, we're good, it goes through. Now, let's say, for instance, if we go look back at the drawing, it kind of makes you think that hole is like lined up in the center line of the slot, right? There's a slot. If you drew a center line like it on space, the center of that hole would be lined up right in that same plane, right? The thing about when you do these drawings, again, I'll go back to the oops. The actual dimension of this whole, so now I'm going to use a reference dimension because I want to know how wide this is. Okay, so it's going to ask me the question again. Let's say it's 10, right? So, make this 3, make this 4. So I know that over here, this dimension over here is going to be 3. So that this is right in the center of my part. Now, if I want this hole to be aligned with that, what I can do is I draw. So there's different lines. You can see that there's center line. So in my sketch, I can go to this. See right away, it has an idea what I want to do. It knows there's a line there, and that's the midpoint of that line, and it snaps to it all by itself. So I take that and I pull that center line, and it wants to snap on its own to the midpoint of this other line. Now what I'll do is I'll take off these dimensions. I'll take my circle and I'll snap it to that line. Now it's locked into that line. It's always gonna stay on that line. Now all I have to do is take the dimension from the hole to this edge to find out how far away I want it. So these little pictures here, they're called relations. That relation is called, if you hover the mouse, it says midpoint. This one will say coincident. You start getting ideas of what it's doing. So the cool thing now is that it's connected to the center line of those grooves. So if these grooves move over, then that hole should move over. See what happened. See, now it crashed on me because it went like that. So now I got this red business here that this isn't connected correctly. Oh, I see. Should work. So the hole follows it because they're connected. Okay, so that's kind of like what I was just trying to show is that those things will move around if you connect things that way. If your design intent was for that hole to be in that groove because there's going to be a part sitting in there, then you want to model it with that same design intent in mind. If you know that these two have to be together, then model it that way. That's kind of the takeaway from the last like 15 minutes of trying to do this, is that if you use these good practices, then no matter what, you'll always come out with a really solid design that won't give you too many problems. Now, we did this as if we were removing material, right? So that was the removing material type of way of doing it. But you could have just as easily, and this is where it takes a little experience, is that you could draw it as if you're a welder and say, I'm going to get this plate, and I'm going to extrude it. I got this plate, right? And then I'm going to go on this space right here, and I'm going to, let's say I want to attach another plate to it. So I was doing cuts. I started with a big block, and I was doing cuts. But now I'm going to click on this face. I'll draw a square. And I'll extrude. So now we almost got to the same point as where we were at before. So there's not going to be a right way. That's why it's going to take a lot of practicing. Like, you have to practice at home. I think I put online, I'll post it. There's a couple classes here that have computers set up with SolidWorks. So if you don't have a laptop, or you weren't able to download this at home, or if it's not working, there's a few places here, and you have to check with the DNT or the engineering department. I think they might have added some more computers that have SolidWorks on it if you're here on campus. For people who work and got to do this at home, it's going to take a lot of practicing, because these things just take time. So the thing is that, now in this case, it took me 2 steps. 1, 2. The last one I started with a block, it was 1, and I cut it, and it was 2. So it's still 2 steps to get here. And so, but what I personally will do, and what would be the ideal way to do this, is that I'll do those 2 steps in one shot. What I'll do is I will just draw it with a line. I got this, that, this. And I'll extrude that. Because I'm not worried about how they make it. And that's the thing, is when you're designing something, okay, I did it in 1 step. And then the other ones I'll cut in others. There's only a few times where, like, at the end of the day, you know what you need to get done. It's good to have the manufacturing method in mind. They call it design for manufacturability. You don't want to design something that people can't make. But ultimately, in the end, don't try to make, design what it is that you need. And then you can figure out, work with the machine shop, figure out what you need to do to modify it a little bit if needed. You put a bigger radius in there because the cutter has a big radius, whatever the case is, and do it that way. But if you start off forcing it to be done one way, then that's the only way that it'll ever be made. But there's times where I've made a part that was a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch, and the sheet metal shop had like a 30-ton press brake, whatever, and they just bent it. Like, oh, we can make this out of 1 piece, and it'll be half the price. Are you okay with a little radius if we bend it? Yeah, sure, I don't care. Go back and change my drawing, and then I'll do that then. But and that's why you kind of want to work with people, because if I had to go get plate, and how to cut it, and then get a welder to cut both sides, and they got to straighten it all out, like, that'd actually be really expensive to do. If I could go get it out of sheet metal and just bend it out of a cheap piece of sheet metal and get exactly what I want and what I don't care. So try not to design with the manufacturing process in mind. I would wait till later to do that kind of stuff. I would still design it in the least amount of steps possible, so that later you can go back and modify it. When you do modify it, when you do add a radius, it'll be very easy to just go over here and say, oh, I want to add a radius because it's going to be a sheet metal part maybe, and so I'll go and add a fillet, and I'll flip that edge, and we'll call it, But anyways, you can go in there pretty easily and do a lot of stuff. If you model it right, then it'll be able to modify it really easily. If not, you'll run into a lot of problems. I'm not too sure why this is. It's got some default settings to it.
Probably one of 0.5.
Yeah, it's probably too good. Oh, is that right? Let me see. We'll just do a 0.1. Yeah, I did it. There you go. Yeah. So Alright, so why don't you guys, we got a little bit of time, so the next thing is page 144. Yeah, one. 141, sorry. 140, 141. And you can do 39 also. 39 is a good one. So you got 39, 40, and 41. You guys can hang around and practice those, or you can leave. It's up to you if you want to practice a little bit. And by next 30, 15, 20 minutes, we'll shut down shop here. And I can come around and help you guys.
How do you move it around?
Mouse?
Like
Oh,
that?
yeah,
Oh,
totally.
yeah, that's a good question. I'm sorry, I didn't
What
actually
about
cover
you?
that. So when I hold the middle mouse button, it spins it around. If I roll the mouse, it zooms in and zooms out. Yeah, thank you. I was supposed to cover that too. I did it in the other class. And then if I hold the mouse button, the rolling mouse, if I hold the rolling mouse part down and move the mouse, it spins. It's just that roller. But if I hold the roller down and hold control at the same time, control and then the roller, it'll go side to side when I move my mouse. So it pans it over, pans it up and down. If I let go of control, now it spins it. You can see that little arrow. It's kind of like a curled arrow. And it means it's just that roller. You hold down the mouse roller, and it does that. But the second you press control and then the mouse roller, it changes it to panning. Yeah, actually, I want to just point out one more thing, because I forgot I did in the other class I didn't do here. You just watch. So if I click this face and I want to look inside of it, this is the heads up bar here. I'll look at cross sections. I can zoom in and out of the part if I want to look at stuff. So those are the controls that are up there. I can look at the top view. I can look at the front view. So this is right here is the view orientation. This is the section view. If I want to look at it as like a wireframe, I can do that. If I want to turn on the hidden lines or on or off, whatever the case may be, we can do that from here too. So right here, if you go to this one right here, so now I see all the hidden lines, depending on how I look at it. You have it shaded. So there's all these different kind of things over here. You can turn things on and off. And then you have the perspective view where something gets further, smaller as it's further away. Maybe you're making some pictures or something for somebody, like a brochure, and you want to make it look more realistic. And you may put the perspective view because maybe you're doing a presentation, or you want to show off something. You want to make it look more realistic because it's not set to be a perspective view. So yeah, so that's it.
What was the actual workload? So like you're off into space and to go back to the center was Control Z?
So I'm out there. This guy right here is zoom to fit, and I'll bring it right back into the space.
Is there a shortcut button that's with the mouse to Control Z?
Control Z will make it. Will undo. What's that?
I think it said F when you hover over it.
F1 or F. Yeah. Yeah, and you can edit all those. I edit all these. That's why I don't memorize them. I have my own set, but I can show you how to do that too. I don't go and click dimension, smart dimension. I hit D on the keyboard, and then it just does it for me. So I can go in there and customize all that stuff. So
This one too with the right click and you move left to right or show me your shortcuts.
So those are mouse gestures. Yeah, and that's we're not there yet. See, like this. Yeah, you gotta move it around.
Yeah.
We can get that. But you right mouse click, you gotta hold it down for a couple seconds. You gotta move the mouse. And you can customize these so that there's 8 things or 4 things. But we can get to that. But all those things are up here. So all those things that are those, you're trying to do the quick mouse clicks and stuff, but let's first figure out what all these things are, and then we'll get more and more into those things, mouse gestures. But that again, it's like the terms, right? You're like, oh, that thing that does that thing, right? Instead of mouse gestures, and that's what you're looking for. So you guys can work on those, like one of those parts in the book, or you can go home and work on it at home if you download SolidWorks, if you have it. The opportunity to ask some questions while you're here. I'll post homework, and I'll put when it's due, but next class you'll have time to work on it in class.